This video is sponsored by our brand new Ultimate Vegan Baking course, out now. Learn the science, the secrets and the techniques to take your baking to the next level. With over 150 recipes, this course focuses on trying to teach you how the components and ingredients relate to each other so you can become the best possible baker you can be. Buongiorno and welcome to Tiramisu. Tiramisu, the classic Italian dessert where sponge biscuits known as savoiardi are soaked in coffee and normally a bit of brandy, or it could be Kahlua, some form of alcohol. Then they're layered with a lovely layer of cream, and this cream is normally made with mascarpone, eggs and sugar, and then dusted with cacao powder. However, we're going to do a vegan version because the savoiardi biscuits traditionally contain eggs and are not vegan, so we're going to show you simply how to make an easy sponge. We're going to soak them in coffee and vanilla extract, and we're going to make a really simple cream to go on top. Very easy to make, straightforward. Hardest part is making the sponge, and that's very straightforward. So this is an easy dessert. Takes you, in and around 20 minutes of prep time, and it's delicious. It's always a crowd pleaser in our house. Okay, first step, we're going to make our Ladyfingers, or our sponge. So into a large bowl, we're going to sieve in 200 grams of plain white flour. Next, we have 150 grams of white caster sugar, or else xylitol. And finally, our raising agents. We have 1 tablespoon of baking powder and a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. With your clean hand, give it a nice mix. Next, we're going to mix our wet ingredients. We have 150 ml of plant milk. I'm just simply using oat milk. Into that, I'm adding 50 ml of neutral tasting oil. I'm using sunflower oil, or you could just use simple vegetable oil. I've 1/2 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, or vinegar of your choice, and finally 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Pour that in, give it a nice mix together until it becomes homogeneous. Make a little well in the center of our dry ingredients, and we're going to pour in our wet ingredients. Carefully fold that in together until it's all come together, but be careful not to overmix it. I've lined a simple brownie tray with baking parchment, and I'm going to pour in our batter and just level it out. We're baking that into our preheated oven. That's at 180 degrees Celsius, which is 356 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're going to bake that for 25 minutes. So to make proper Ladyfingers that will absorb lots of the coffee liqueur, it's really important we let this cool. We're going to slice them into little fingers, and we're going to rebake them for a second go just to dry them out further so they maximize their absorption of this wonderful coffee liqueur. So we've let our vanilla sponge cool. I'm going to chop this into 16 little pieces. So easiest way to do that is lengthwise chop it in half, then sideways chop it in half, half the halves, and you end up with 16 portions, just like you see here. Best way to separate these is using a palette knife or a blunt knife. I'm going to land these onto a baking tray which I've lined with baking parchment, and I'm going to bake them for 10 minutes at 180 degrees Celsius or 356 degrees Fahrenheit. The main reason why we do these is it's called double baking, is just to dry them out further. It means they're going to be even more absorbent. So we've taken our homemade Ladyfingers of savoiardi out of the oven. We're going to leave these cool, and while these are cooling, we're going to make our cream. So we've got 3 tins of full fat coconut milk. We've taken it out of the fridge because there's natural separation. The kind of cream is at the top and the water is the bottom. Scoop that out into a large mixing bowl. Add in 3/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract and 9 tablespoons of icing sugar. Might seem like loads of icing sugar or powdered sugar, but this really helps it hold its structure. And when you slice that tiramisu, you get this beautiful looking clear division of layers. So I'm simply using a fork just to mash this up, just to break down the coconut cream. Once it's kind of broken down, take it out and we're going to pop in a whisk. I'm just using a lovely little whisk, and I'm going to whisk it for about 1 to 2 minutes, just until it's all broken down and looks smooth like this. This is the most exciting part. Our ingredients are ready to go. So I've taken a 20 centimeter by 20 centimeter baking tray. Make sure it's light blue just for maximum aesthetic appearance. I've lined 2 sheets of baking parchment. This just makes it easy to take out. So I have my dried Ladyfingers, I have my 300 ml of strong coffee. I'm simply using 50 ml of vanilla extract. You could use Kahlua, you could use brandy, or you could even use masala, whichever you want. And finally I have my cream and my cacao to finish with. So add your vanilla or your Kahlua or your brandy or your masala into your coffee. Give it a nice mix, and time to dunk our Ladyfingers. Okay, the exciting part about putting this together, take your Ladyfinger, nice and dry and crispy, and we're going to dunk it into our cool coffee and vanilla extract mixture. Give it a nice dunk, make sure it's nicely coated, and we're going to lay that down. Repeat that with 8 Ladyfingers and just lay them out like I have here, 2 lines of 4, and make sure they're tightly packed. Let's take half our cream and smear it over the top until you get a nice even layer, and that looks great. Again, take another 8 of your Ladyfingers, dunk them in nicely. Finally, we're going to finish with a nice generous lather of our cream. Ideally pop that into the fridge for an hour to allow it to set, just the coconut cream will harden fully. However, if you're a little bit impatient, which often I suffer with, just simply decorate with cacao on the top. So traditionally, just a dusting of cacao powder is just on the top just to finish it. However, I like to go a little bit further, being the chocolate enthusiastic, and I like to not only microplane a little bit of chocolate, I also like to take a potato peeler and just run the back of a slice of chocolate and just get these lovely little micro twirls. I always think they look super cool. In terms of making your tiramisu look beautiful, as with most things in design, the more you can have straight lines, the better the definition between the layers. So I'm just cutting around the edges here just to get straight lines. I'm going to chop it into a perfectly even square, pop her on a plate. This looks magic. This looks absolutely magnificent, and I think it's worthwhile getting those straight lines. It just really maximizes this incredibly beautiful cake's potential, aesthetic potential. Anyway, right, without further ado, let's get stuck in. So it really is worthwhile just soaking your little sponge fingers just for a tiny few seconds longer, because your spoon just melts through it. Okay, I'm salivating so much I can barely talk. Time to... It's light, it's creamy, it's spongy, it's chocolatey. It is magnifique, buenissimo, delicioso. It's wonderful. This is such an understated, fabulous, crowd-pleasing dessert. I forgot how much celebrated it is. You tell someone you're making tiramisu. We were just down the beach earlier, and I told people we were making tiramisu. Oh, can I have a bit? Can I have a bit? Just like, anyway, this is magnificent. I hope you enjoyed as much as we do, and grazie, ciao.